14th of July. Today's video presentation is D10, laws relating to property. Now, laws relating to properties is also commonly called as property laws in the Part 2 examination. This is a tough paper. So most people who are doing Part 2, there are 3 law papers, as I like to repeat. One is law relating to properties. This is D10. Estate agency law, D8, and then real estate agency practice, which is D11. So out of the 3, in fact, laws relating to property or property law is considered one of the harder to pass. The amount of laws that is involved, because it's a plural, law with the S, is actually quite a lot, and most people tends to be looking at the number of acts to remember, tends to be scared of this subject. However, maybe you can say that the level of marking is still not as strict as the LLB marking, so the passing rate for this paper is not too bad. In fact, some people actually feel that this is easier to compare with the real estate agency practice, which is the D11 paper. However, this is like what I have explained earlier. Out of the 3, this is the hard disk, because the D8, which is estate agency law, is like your RAM, your computer RAM, and then the real estate agency practice is like your software. So this one is like your hard disk. So it needs a lot of memory work and a lot of act to remember. So let us go in for the more details. So now I blow this out to be seen easier for you. The number of laws subjects in Part 2, this is the one that with the most number of acts. So you can actually see Touch on Land Acquisition Act 1969, Touch on National Land Court 1965. In fact, National Land Court is already big amount of things to study. Strata Titles Act 1985, Strata Management Act 2013, Housing Development Control Licensing Act, which is Developer Act, is actually 1966, and then Town and Country Planning Act 1976. So out of these many acts, sometimes they concentrate on to a few, which is land, meaning land as a law is actually National Land Court. So a lot of things will be asked about National Land Court. There will be one question about acquisition, land acquisition compensation, and then strata titles and strata management. There will usually be 1 or 2 questions on the strata building. Then the housing development is more towards area of dealing with the developer, especially handling the case of liability, defect liability area. Then the town and country planning is more development charge, development planning. So which is asked also in property taxation in the Part 1. So town and country planning, like local plan, proposal for the local plan, come up with the new development area. So in fact, doing this video is a bit tough for me because of the fact that there's a lot of details. If I were to drill into the details, it would be too long for this particular video. People will feel sleepy listening to video like this. So to me, this is the toughest of all the videos, because I cannot go into details for just one particular act and then ignoring the rest. So I have to choose to do probably touching the surface of most of the areas, just to summarize for you to know how do you approach this paper. Maybe to concentrate on certain acts, and even certain acts also probably only part of the area of specialty to remember certain repeat topics. You can't be studying all the acts in detail. Definitely not even probably lawyer do that. Lawyers, maybe land lawyers, lawyers that is specific job of dealing with land, maybe they have to really study the land court in detail. But most lawyers in the practice also may still have to refer to the land court, especially if they are not day in day out dealing with land. So let us go in. I like to go into the previous slide, which is the syllabus. So this one I blow it big just to say about the syllabus. Now syllabus for D10 property law or laws relating to property is into quite a few parts. In here it says 6 parts, 6 paragraphs. Of course the main one will be the first one, which is the one I have made a big circle and highlighting, which is the National Land Court. So the National Land Courts, in particular, I highlighted the yellow one, dealings. So what the agent does is actually help in the dealings of the land. So the land court, of course, says a lot of things about land, but then the agents are more likely engaged in the purpose of dealings. That means land transfer, land being leased for long term, So all these dealings actually involves the work of the agent and also the lawyers. So we need to know what are the laws that is involved in the dealings. So transfer lease charge lien such indefeasibility of title torrent system all these basic things about National Land Court that the agent need to know. Then the other one is I mentioned about the development charge, purchase notice, development area. This one is always one question, and then you have compulsory acquisition or area of land to be acquired for a purpose. Like we have mentioned earlier in other studies that in case that infrastructure building then involves a acquisition of land, this actually can be asked in a few areas like in property tax and also in laws relating to property. Definitely you probably done it a long time ago so this is a revisit of what you have done in part 1 under property taxation. Then the other thing is about strata properties, strata title, and the other things about Malay Reserve enactments. Sometimes this type of question can come out. Although in the syllabus it does mention about mining certificate, mining lease, power to acquire land, and construction of electrical installation, compensation. Seldom question asked on this thing. In fact, I have not seen any which is asked on details of this level. Plus also the Muslim law on distribution of landed properties like passing on different types of Muslim law is Sharia. So under Sharia there is a different way of how distribution is done for ancestor lands passed on to descendant. So this one we also do not really concentrate on this, and I have not actually seen one question that is specific on Muslim distribution. Probably for most of us who are not in the Sharia practice area, we would avoid if you see this type of question, probably we just avoid. So there are about 5 areas, maybe 1-2 question coming out from the land court, and then number 3 question or one of the question can come out from the town and country planning. Then you have another question coming from land acquisition. Then the last maybe you can target the area of strata title, strata management. So this is roughly the syllabus and question that usually can be targeted. So this is another thing that maybe some question can come out similar to this, which is quite Latin. I think some of the old past year questions usually come out with this type of thing. So quid, pro tanto, solo, cadit. So this is a bit of like you were saying in the first part 1 introduction to law. They ask you what is estoppel. The doctrine of estoppel. You cannot say you did not do it. Some sort of principle, doctrine of precedence, all these things. So this type of question can come out, and usually only a very limited number of question like this will come out lah. So it will not be very frequent that you have to answer Latin words questions. So I would say that maybe to us this is the problem. I blow this out because some of these issues are in fact serious issues for this subject. That one is a lot to study. It's a very wide topic. So even land court itself is so thick. So probably you just can't, in fact, can't finish reading the land court also. Even you start today and until the next year end, probably you also cannot remember area where you need to study for the land court. So it cannot be the way that it is. That means you cannot be studying by the book. So you have to be clever to target, to really focus, not spending too much time on unnecessary things. Some laws are amended also. This is another problem with the paper laws relating to property, because some of the acts has been over time amended and amended. So for example, Strata Titles Act has been amended a few times, and some of the acts that were used before actually are already dimansuhkan, no more dibubarkan, dimansuhkan. So you have to remember that now in the exam, if you write all the wrong one that has been mansuhkan, then it doesn't mean anything to today's law. So the likelihood is that you will not get marks. So all those acts that has been mansuhkan or replaced by newer act, you have to keep in track. And sometimes for this you have problem because we are not lawyers, so we don't really go and check on all these things. Some involve subsidiary legislation. So sometimes some of these acts because they are legislation passed by the parliament, there will be their regulations and their subsidiary legislation. So all those things may be asked. So sometimes these are things that difficult to answer because you don't go to that detail. Just like the Valuer Appraiser, Estate Agent and Property Managers Act, there is our regulation on the rules 1986. So this subsidiary legislation usually come out later than the act, although amended the act but not the subsidiary legislation. So it also becomes a problem whether it's actually how detailed or how much you want to answer. So question can be broad, and that is where the problem is, the scope of how you want to target the repeat topics. So the repeat topics can be quite wide also. There are a lot of repeat topics. So instead of studying just a few repeat topics, this paper tends to be a bit rojak here and there. So therefore, I guess cut the story short, you have to put more effort. That's all. So I like to disclaim that whatever I've done for the prediction, I do not take responsibility or liability or in such the case that question similar may come out in the exam. So this is the study of the past 8 years, 2011 to 2018, and then I have done the 2019 repeat topics. So roughly it can be 6 or 7 areas. So I just read through. One is land acquisition. So there will be always one question about land acquisition. Those areas related to objection, the award of land acquisition, then the compensation, and then rejection or objection to the compensation. What are the procedures? So there is also injurious affection. These are sub area of land acquisition. So some question may come out: severance, speedy process, how to make it faster, the land acquisition. Some of these land acquisition question can be quite detailed, so you need to study and remember. Next is the bit of by the book, so-called the theory and the Latin name of the law. So indivisibility of the land title. So like, this question will ask what are the reasons, what are the cases, so they will be involving at least 2 cases. In the old days, it's only one case, Ardonagh Properties. Now because the Adona Properties has been overturned, so the newer case law in roughly about 2009 to 2010 is actually the Tan Ying Hong and Tan Xian Zhang. So these two cases you need to remember and to argue the cases if you want to tackle this topic lah. Third is strata title, strata management, those related to strata property lah. So it involves the MC, the management corporation. So this part is maintenance charges. People don't pay maintenance charges. Can you off the water or not? Because the strata property usually the big pipe coming out from the water supply, it goes to the condominium, and then individual house is given a condominium meter lah. So the meter managed by the management company, the management corporation. Then if you don't pay the water bill, they can do the thing lah, like switch off or close up the box, then you cannot have water supply. Is this allowed in law or not? So this type of question, or electricity, or you can stop the access card and whatever related to management of the power of the management lah. Then next is more theory question about definition, about land court. So you usually ask things like what are the different caveats. So what are the different caveats? What are the things like what's charge? What is the meaning of title is charge to the bank? And then the easement, what is easement? What is lien? What is the difference between all these things? So this is a bit like a definition question where you can have one question coming out with 4 or 5 sub questions, smaller parts of the questions, and then this is you by heart, you go and you write out, and you should be able to get at least half correct lah. Then other than that, there will be more theory things like whether what are the title, what are the classification of title, category of title, title is what type of title, document of title, types of land, the different types of land, probably more to restriction, all these whether this restriction, conversion, premium payment, or regarding land lah. So this is one of the land court questions. And of course I mentioned about the town and country planning. So town and country planning, one question which relates to development, relates to public participation in the plan, local plan. So the whole piece of region, the whole area needs to go through that process to be zoned, to be given a residential zone, or there will be a road system and things like that. So town and country planning. Then the last one that may come out is the developers area lah. So if you have area like problem with developer, like liability problem, defect liability period is how long, and then in developer case because the Housing Development Act, the HDA, there is subsections inside, and that regulates the purchase of houses directly from developer. So that will follow schedule of the act lah. So the schedule of the act is in particular schedule H, schedule G and H lah. So that is SPA related. So this type of area of coverage of this topic is more on the law, whereas in the real estate agency practice is more on the practice side lah. So HDA is involved here, as well as in case of real estate agency practice in the D11. So maybe just to summarize again, one question each, one from land acquisition, one from indivisibility, or some of the topic like doctrine of what, the one that I mentioned just now, quick planteto, solo kedit. So this is type of question. And then you have one for strata title, strata management act, and then maybe 2 more from National Land Court, which is about definition, and then last is the town and country planning lah. And then if there is a few on something to do with developer, then it's extra that you can keep up your sleeve lor. Right, just on this, I would blow this to let you know again. The focus is doing 5 questions out of 8. There are broad number of laws and the area is big, so I will divide it out into these 5 areas, 5 questions. So one is land acquisition, one is strata title, one is town and country planning, and then the rest 2 can be from land court. So how to choose, this is key to success in your exam, because sometimes choosing the correct question needs some technique lah. So this one I just to summarize, you study the marks first. That means if the question is broken into a few sub questions, and then you study the marks and study which one would you able to get more marks. Then next you actually go to target those definition question. So if you can get the question which is easy, straightforward, because classification of land, for example, you are quite sure, then quite easy you can score the points. So in this case, those easy definition type, you should score and keep it in your pocket first. Then the definition based too, so like lien, charges, easement, and all those caveat and all those things. So different type of title, you got to study lah. That one is like by the book lah. Plus maybe other area of sub area of strata title. Maybe they will ask about share, the parcel, the number of parcel, so the share unit thing. So maybe they'll ask you definition of share unit lah, all these things, which can come out as a definition question. So this is possible. Next is you go for the case law. If you are good with argument type, you can remember the stories in the Adona property or the Tan scenario. So you can write out the case law and argue your case. This is for indefeasibility of the title. Then next is there's always one question which is a mix. Sometimes the first part is give you question on development charge or development local plan, and then another part they give you a story. So story is a case lah, like Ahmad and Ali lah, they all next to each other, adjoining land then they already agreed lah. Then this land used by the inside land they call it the second lot lah, not the first lot lah, the second lot. So the second lot land need to use the entrance from the first lot, the main road accessibility. So there will be easement. Then later on, these two guys they have agreed and then sold it to one person, and then both are sold to one person. So this easement still there or not? So these are types of questions that they will ask. And then lastly, the types of liability period, SPA, Schedule G and H. This, if they come out, probably quite straightforward lah. So you can roughly know, because it's a very wide scope. So you have to rightly choose the correct question and a correct point system where you think you can get the most amount of marks. So I have 2 principles here. One is you study the marks. Of course, the better marks that you can get, because you know that subject, you repeat topic, so you score like that. Second is the sub questions. If you know the sub questions, at least some sub questions, you can get marks. How to do the answers? This is in the way very particular for this paper. I guess it's a lot of essay writing. There's no calculation. So this paper is different from property tax and valuation paper or some of the economics paper in part 1, which sometimes you need to draw chart and things like that. This one, nothing, just words. So you have to identify the meaning of the question first. So what exactly the meaning of the question? So maybe in your starting, you can give some background, you can actually summarize what the question wants. Second is you have to answer the main question. Of course, specific to the question. Don't go simply goreng. If you know, just go straight to the answer. I guess time is an issue. So if you are writing 5 questions, 5 answers, you have to space out about similar to each probably 35 minutes per question. So due to the time limitation, you probably need to know what you want to write immediately lah. Don't too long winded. Then next is to do a short conclusion or short summary lah. So the short summary may view your point, you give your own personal point, although it was a case discussion. Then after the case, and then you say personally how do you feel. So this will add more marks if the marker and the examiner see that you have your own original thoughts, then they will be able to gain some marks. Right, so I would like to say this is a goreng and tembak paper lah. It's not the same as valuation or property taxation paper or accounting paper. This is really about how good you can write and how well you can argue some of the points in the answer. So there are definition questions which you cannot goreng, or you can goreng a little bit, cannot goreng lah, you can goreng a little bit, but there will be questions that you really need to write your view on. So these are things that maybe applicability of the law in the real practice. So maybe in that sense you need to write also. If you are not sure, you still need to write. And sometimes you may write it in the blur manner that there is not really wrong, and then therefore you have more chances to get some marks. Usually examiner sees you sees your writing and then not too far out, they will have sympathy marks for you. So strategy to pass is to identify the repeat topics. Then you memorize some of the laws that is really, the section and the case law, and then the doctrine, and then the types of things you have to memorize, no choice. And then you understand the question, and then try to put those answers in the correct manner. So there is also a problem here, because you can never know how much you have to study, because you cannot finish all that is to study. In fact, in a way, in tackling the study papers like Introduction to Law also, you really have a lot of things to study. And sometimes doing all these studies, sometimes you forget some, you remember some. So sometimes it's like your RAM lah. You have a small RAM, but your hard disk is so big. So sometimes you cannot bring your hard disk to exam. So you only have the RAM. So it's like, okay, you do the best you can with the repeat topics, and then hopefully out of 5 questions you can have good answer for 2 or 3, and then average or not so average question answers for the others. And then this marking is not so serious, like you have to get about high marks, 80%, 90% to pass. This is probably marking whereby averagely most people can pass. So the laws involve Land Acquisition Act, National Land Court, Strata Title Act, Strata Management Act, Housing Development Control Licensing Act, and then Town and Country Planning, spelling wrong, TCPA. And last is a summary. The overview of the scope we have gone through. D10 laws relating to property, a tough paper. It's not an easy paper because a lot to study. And then various laws, wide scope for this subject, main sections, as I mentioned just now. Then how to pass, to target the repeat topics, because they will be always repeat, so you don't go and take one textbook, study land law, and then go from chapter 1 to chapter, finishing the chapter. A lot of things are not going to be asked in this exam, so you must know where the questions are coming, so you have to really check and see the past years. Approach to study the thing is, we went through also how to choose the questions. It's a 3-hour paper. You have to answer 5 questions out of 8. So understanding the question is important, and then you have memorized some of the things, and so in a way matching your memory work with the understanding of question, and then put your answers matching, the best would be earning you the marks. Thank you very much for listening to today's video. I have a feeling that this is difficult to do this video because the depth is quite huge for this subject, and not everyone can really finish studying, so therefore it's not easy to know how confident you are. So sometimes going into exam for this paper, you tend to be doing your best and then coming out feeling depressed. So don't be discouraged lah. This is the way it is. The marking scheme is not too strict, so maybe most people who has put down study and you covered those topics that I mentioned should be able to work well for the exam, this coming exam lah. And thank you very much. estateagentexam.com is a portal for online self-study of diploma in estate agency examination conducted by the Board of Valuers Appraisers, Estate Agents and Property Managers Malaysia. My tagline: know your position, crystallize your vision and mission to be different. Thank you.